If you've been watching my videos since implants were released, you know already how I feel about them. But in short, I really dislike this system. The concept of implants was really positive, a way to incentivize more activity from players in the game by giving you something to do in a combat situation that would essentially give you advantages if you were more active and less AFK. The actual implementation, though, has turned into a pay-to-win nightmare, where essentially the only ways to get high-grade implants is either by engaging with a strong monetization system, buying the implant outright, or essentially having to perform a very niche activity multiple times over and over again in order to achieve that top tier, and that's kind of the lesser way of doing it. Now, NetEase have just given an implant adjustment preview where they are going to be modifying some of the implants, and a lot of you have asked me to weigh in on this. I'm going to try and not be too negative about this. I'm not trying to be negative for the sake of negativity. I promise you that none of my negative content recently has been about, negative baiting. I'm not trying to make negative content to get views. I don't like making negative content. I want to talk positively about a game I thoroughly love. However, this implant adjustment preview has some shadows cast over it, and there have been some events recently in the game as well that I feel I need to weigh in on that categorically showcase the situation we are currently in, that proves that NetEase are not listening to me, they are not listening to you, they are only caring about listening to people who have their wallet open for them. Ahoy there, folks! I'm Captain Benzie, and here's a video proving that NetEase just don't care about anything unless it's the money anymore. So first of all then, let's have a look at the implant adjustment preview here, because there's a lot to unpack here. Dear Capsuleer, with implants available for usage, many Capsuleers have devoted themselves to studying how to use them in different situations and created an abundance of practical tactics. Combat environments and fittings vary, and so do implant capabilities and their branches, which makes various combinations. This amplifies our core design purpose to bring variety and playability to combat. I could argue that point, but I'm going to let that fly for the purposes of this video. At the same time, this places great demands on maintaining a delicate balance of implants. Since the launch, we've received a lot of suggestions regarding the implant balance. We've made slight adjustments and fixed some bugs, but there is no absolute balance since there's a huge difference between implant capabilities. Issues regarding support projection and focused crystal urgently require improvement. Here's where I do have to spend a moment just to say, you know what? I'm not sure I really agree with what NetEase are trying to sell here. They're trying to sell something, I'm not buying it. They are trying to sell the concept that they're trying to balance implants to be fair. They're not. Implants were launched as a massively overpowered system in order to incentivize as much purchasing power as possible. The idea was that you would spend upwards of $100 buying a gold level implant, and then even more to buy the materials to actually level it up to the maximum capabilities of that implant. Yes, you can get implants through DIR, Dormant Realms, but not all of them were readily available at the start, and even then you would need a very specific group of pilots using very specific ships in order to gain access to them, and then the grind to maximize them is all but impossible without major payments along the route. So this concept here, that they've received a lot of suggestions regarding implant balance, and they've made slight adjustments and fixed some bugs, but there's no absolute balance because there's huge differences. Yeah, this is why implants should never have been the way they were. Again, the concept of positives with drawbacks is very much a thing that is absent from EVE Echoes. Again, to use EVE Online as an example, if you are fitting shield extender rigs onto a ship, that comes at the cost of additional signature radius. And that does technically still happen on things like plates and shield extender modules, but not on the rigs. If you wanted this concept to apply to EVE Echoes, then things like cargo extender rigs should also reduce your ship's structure, armor, and shields. Things like the warp disruption rigs, the ones that allow you to warp away. Those should have negatives to them that reduce other factors of your ship's capabilities to make fitting these an actual choice. You want your ship to do one thing, that comes at the cost of something else, but this is a concept that does not exist in EVE Echoes. If if you want your ship to do something, pay enough and you can do it, is more the concept they're going for here. Anyway, let's have a look at what they're saying. Support projection, first of all. This is the new missile implant, the missile implant that was actually useful, to point out. Because let's be completely frank, the previous two missile implants left a little bit to be desired, shall we say the least, and that's coming from someone who uses missiles and drones as their two primary weapon systems in EVE Echoes. Implants that sacrifice firepower for support and control capabilities. To make it less easy for the ship to be destroyed when encountering a professional support projection team with low firepower, we've incorporated an immune system that functions similarly to automatic defense implants. How will we adjust support projection? When attacked by electronic jamming warheads, the ship's electronic system will enter an emergency adjustment state and be immune to more electronic jamming within 10 seconds. Yeah, so what they've essentially said is, thank you for all the money that you guys have given us for these implants. We're glad to see that you're using them, but some of the whales have complained that they just can't get the use out of the ship that they've swiped thousands for. Therefore, sorry, we're taking away your toys. Fingers crossed you won't hate us and you'll just buy more of whatever the next crap that we try to sell is. And why do I get that opinion? Because let's unplug this. Let's actually, pick this apart and look at it. Implant that sacrifice firepower for support and control capabilities. That's a good thing. That's exactly how I feel implants should be. The tactical warhead one for missiles is exactly how I feel an implant should be. Something that allows you to change how you're playing and make actual educated decisions in combat to get the most out of a situation. That was what the missile one did. Unfortunately, it wasn't what any of the other implants did, and that's why all the other implants were just categorically better than it, because they weren't a drawback. They weren't, oh, you're going to have a negative, but you get a positive if you're using it at the right situation. It was just like, press this button and do 45,000 DPS, that kind of thing. So, to make it less easy for the ship to be destroyed when encountering a professional support projection team with low firepower, pause. What is actually the problem there? What is the problem there? Someone said to me on Reddit yesterday, oh, the issue is that if your fleet has 20 ships all running that implant, then you can just switch off an enemy ship and DPS it down. It's like, yes, but it takes 20 of your fleet to do that, which means the enemy fleet, assuming you are running at equal numbers, has literally a fifth more firepower than you do at this point in time. If it's 100 ships versus 100 ships, you're saying that 20 of those are dedicating themselves to shutting down one enemy ship? That seems like a genuinely fine trade-off to me. Like, if I'm going to sacrifice 20% of my fleet's DPS to take out one of your ships, I don't see a problem with that. I see that as good frickin' game design, which is sadly scarce in Echoes these days. So I immediately have a problem with this because of the simple basis of what it is. And what this comes down to, honestly, I don't have evidence for this specifically, but to me this sounds like someone complained that they lost their big expensive dreadnought or carrier or assault carrier to a fleet of people who were using the low firepower, support projection team. They lost their ship to a support projection team that knew what they were doing. An idiot lost their ship to a team of people who knew what they were doing and complained about it. Now, I don't have any evidence. I don't know if that is actually the case here. But why do I believe that? Because we have just categorically had evidence. There are screenshots doing their rounds of the EVE Echoes community right now of a certain pilot who recently lost a very, very expensive Force Auxiliary, literally getting given that Force Auxiliary back by NetEase because he complained. NetEase then turned around and kind of said, well, you've been accused of using synchronization, which we don't allow by the terms of service, but if you pay a fine, then absolutely we'll give you your ship back and off you go kind of thing. Only for a couple of days later, him to be found doing the exact same thing. Categorical proof of synchronization and someone not being banned for it because they are paying NetEase. They're flying the big expensive capitals, the rules are being rewritten around them. NetEase do not care about you or me, they care about who is paying the money to them. And it's a business. You can't get angry at that, because that is what businesses do. That's just capitalism in a nutshell, right? That is late-stage capitalism in a nutshell. And that's not me but getting political. If you want to get angry that I'm bringing politics into this, you're missing the freaking point. That's not political. That is a statement of fact as to how capitalism and late-stage capitalism actually works. That's written by actual capitalists. I'm not getting political here, folks. You can keep watching the video. I'm explaining how something works. There's a difference. Anyway, so this is also, and the other bit of evidence that suggests that this is capital pilots complaining and NetEase bowing to them is that we also know that the showdown mode boost recently that meant that they were, less affected by electronic warfare was because of mass outcry. We know this. NetEase themselves admitted that people had complained that their dreadnoughts were being shut down too easily by electronic warfare modules. Ergo, we are going to increase the resilience to electronic warfare modules on capital ships. If you think for a second that NetEase give a crap about your ship if it is smaller than a battleship, you're mistaken. They don't. If you don't fly capitals, they don't care about you. If you fly battleships, they care a little bit, but not much. They care if you fly capitals. If you're not flying capitals, they do not give a damn about you right now. If you are caught cheating using synchronization for a fleet of battleships, you're not going to get away with it. You're going to have your account banned. If you get caught synchronizing a fleet of capitals, NetEase might just look the other way and give you your account back, because after all, thank you, you've been such a good customer to us, we wouldn't want to upset you. That's what this comes down to. People complained that their capital ships that they had spent big money on were losing to fleets of other ships that people hadn't spent money on. Electronic warfare. The point of electronic warfare is to shut down big ships. That is literally what it's designed for. Like, read the descriptions on what a tracking disruptor or a guidance disruptor does. Yeah. And NetEase then buffed the capitals so that those were less effective. Now they're doing it again by an implant that has barely been out a few weeks at this point, getting heavily nerfed to the point that it's pointless. Read this again. When attacked by electronic jamming warheads, the ship's electronic system will enter an emergency state, immune to more within 10 seconds. That means if you're hit by one of them, then no one else in the fleet has an impact. They are immune. If you've got those 20 ships that we had before, only the first one to hit deals its effect. The other 19, pointless. No point bringing them anymore. So those 19 people who bought those implants, who leveled up those implants, thank you for giving NetEase your money. They have taken that money and now they are giving you less effectiveness. You may as well uninstall that implant because all it's doing now is gimping your DPS. As long as one person in your fleet has that implant, yeah. It's nerfed, it's gone, it's pointless. One of the counters to capital ships has been categorically removed. Counters to anything else? Absolutely fine. The fact that, a carrier can counter pretty much anything smaller than it, we're fine with that. The fact that dreadnoughts do what they do, we're fine with that. But the second something threatened our precious paying capital pilots, we nerfed it into the ground. What about the focus crystal, though, I hear you cry? Implants suitable for persistent battles against large ships and structures. Taking the large pulse laser as an example, the initial interval of 7.85 seconds can obtain 2 focus effect levels and achieve its peak in about 3 minutes. It was initially designed that the focus effect would be removed upon switching targets. However, after testing under multiple combat scenes in New Eden, we discovered that the application for focus crystals is very limited, so we did not implement this setting. Okay. Cool. So we identified an issue and you decided that, oh no, well, it's pointless kind of us doing that. Okay. This causes new problems. Focus crystals give out balanced performance in battles within 3 minutes. However, its damage bonus becomes too high when the battle exceeds 3 minutes, and the longer the battle, the higher it gets, way higher than other implants. Common PvE battles usually take more than 3 minutes, which makes focus crystals the most popular implant. If you're a Clarilam mission runner in an Apocalypse Striker, yeah, chances are you're using a maxed out focus crystal implant at this point. Eclipsing other weapon systems. After taking everything into consideration, we decided to extend the time for its firepower to peak and reduce its maximum damage bonus. Okay, so each attack gains 1 more focus effect per level. Reuse won't be overpowered while maintaining their distinctions. We will continue to observe the performance after the update. Again, They talk in a second here about how the other ones, like sniping technology and barrage repression, deal high critical damage but lack endurance. They basically hand wave and say everything else is pretty much fine. It still has room for improvement, but no, it doesn't. You shouldn't be improving these. Implants don't need improving. Implants need being made widely available to everyone. Implants need actually being just like something that is an active choice rather than press the button on cooldown, which is basically what the barrage one is at this point, right? When it's fully charged, you press the button and then you press it again. It's not exactly difficult, right? It's not the design intent that they had. What we're looking at here absolutely is whales have complained about things, therefore after years we have fixed them. Like the barrage implant, despite complaints, is still ridiculous. I made a joke earlier about hitting 45,000 DPS with a thing. Yeah, you can do that with the barrage implant. It's just insane. The focus crystal one was the most egregious, and we've been on at NetEase for 2 years about this. And my honest feeling on this is that it's only now that, you know, the complaints have hit critical mass that NetEase are finally responding. The Focus Crystal, that took a matter of weeks to get nerfed into the ground, and I do mean into the ground, like literally, as I said. If you were running fleets of these, you now only need one. Like, that is how bad this nerf really is. That got nerfed into the ground in minutes, almost, because of, like, people complaining. And that is the point I want to make with this video. I don't see either of these as huge changes. I really, well, okay, in the overall game state, I mean, obviously that is a huge change on the support projection. Going from using 20 of them to using one of them is a huge change. But in the grand scheme of things in EVE Echoes, it's not going to massively affect anything. All it's going to do is piss off a load of people who spent a lot of money getting those implants and maxing them out, only to find they are now useless. There could have been a note in here with NetEase saying, look, if you've leveled and bought one of these, we're going to issue a partial refund or something towards it. But no, there's none of that, which means they don't care. They've taken your money, you bought the big exciting thing that now doesn't work. You've paid a load of money for something that just doesn't exist properly anymore. And for the Focus Crystal, yeah, you've paid a load of money on that, but notably the difference between those two. Support projection was bought by people who weren't flying capitals. That's being put onto ships that people are flying, like interceptors, onto like frigates, destroyers, cruisers. Those kind of ships are the ones using support projection. Focused crystals, on the other hand, those are the ones being used by the usual whales. So you've got a situation here where the thing that has been nerfed is not being used by the big, massive spenders. They got a load of people who normally don't spend on the game to spend big, and then took the toy away after they'd paid for it. The Focused Crystal, on the other hand, that is one that the whales have been using for years, the big spenders have been using since that came out, and they're kind of changing it a little bit, still allowing those people to get the most use out of it, whilst pretending that this means anything to the rest of us, who are still languishing in a game that is categorically dying at this point. I don't want to hate this game, I don't hate this game, I love this game to pieces. I just want it to be better. I want it to live up to the promise that NetEase gave us at the start of how amazing this game could be. I know what this game could be. I have been there in this game for 3.5 years now. I have been watching it closely every day of my life for the past nearly 1,000, probably over 1,000 days at this point. Way over 1,000 days, actually. Over 1,000 days I have been watching this daily, seeing how it's going. And right now, if you're not paying, they don't care. Happy sailing, folks, and see you in New Eden.